Welcome everybody to Self-Love Talks, and today we are going to be talking about sacred sexuality, and this is a follow-on conversation from the Self-Love Talks from last week, and we were talking about twin flames and false twin flames and divine union and all kinds of, love, couple, connection related, conception related things, and it was so good that we wanted to carry it on and do more. This is my beautiful guest, Nina Starsong. Nina's in Maine right now in the US. I'm in Brighton in the UK. And I have to say, Nina, that we've been connecting on the Divine Feminine Roundtable videos, guys. And if you haven't been watching those, please go to my YouTube channel and look at them. They're amazing. So Nina and I met there. What a place to meet. And then the more we connect, the more connections we find that we've got. And it really is like meeting, my sister from before we were on this world, without getting too complicated about it.
Yes, it most definitely is. It's like meeting my Lemurian Atlantean
something. I know, it's wonderful. So today, so welcome everybody. Thanks for being here with us. Thanks for watching. And if you have, if you'd like to invite anybody else to this conversation, it gets very deep and quite incredible, actually. And I don't even know what's going to come out of today. So, Nina, how are you feeling today, by the way?
I am feeling very grateful for a lot of healing that's been happening for me and for so many, and I feel like I'm starting to see what it would really be like to live in a new earth 5D community. I've been connected with brothers and sisters recently that are really walking that path, and it's like, wow, we're actually doing it. It's so amazing. I feel like the fruits of the labors are starting to be seen. And I'm just so grateful for that.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like every day, it's like I'm waking up more excited than ever. Like, what's going to happen today? Because every single day feels so full, like rapid expansion, transformation, things being revealed that have been hidden from the collective consciousness. Yes. I mean, on all levels, whether we're talking political levels or whether we're talking cosmic levels or relationship levels or our own personal understanding of who we are and why we're here, all of these, incredible revelations, I suppose. It's a time of revelations, a time of great evolution and awakening, and it's unbelievably magic.
It really is. It's like you can feel the magic in the air. Yeah. And the veil is just so thin right now, that 5D experience of what it's like to be sovereign and to be in community with others that are sovereign. We're doing it, and it's incredible.
And isn't it amazing? Because I mean, this isn't really the topic, we're a little bit, not in what we're going to talk about today, which is, sacred sexuality and everything that brings. And it's like, I haven't had a conversation like this ever, let alone on a video. So I'm like, oh my God, there's so much information that wants to come through today. But yes. I'm just, I was going to share something else first and now I forgot. It doesn't matter. I was talking about how, it doesn't matter. It's not important. Let's just go in, Nina, because one thing that we've been connecting on is the relationship journey that we've had, and what is inside of us. It's like what's in the DNA codes almost. It's, for me, and I know it's going to be the same for you, like a cellular knowledge, something that's known deep inside, and then wanting to experience that in this real world, and not being able to meet those, that level of our sacred sexuality, our union, our soul connection, our physical connection with another human being. And it just not, I mean, there's been some nice experiences, don't get me wrong, but there's so much more, isn't there? How do you feel that?
I feel like what I'm really learning about and understanding in my own experience is really what it is to have this sacred marriage and union within of the Christ Magdalene energies, or the divine masculine feminine. For me, it's very Christ masculine. And I've had this entirely new experience, which is changing my physical body, actually, of understanding what it is to be a priestess of Gaia. And within that, it's just causing so much healing, because as my being in that DNA is awakening to truth, it's healing all of the areas in my feminine womb, in my sacral area, actually in my spine. I've been having a lot of spine release, and different aspects of Kundalini moving. So I feel like it's really activating in such a beautiful way. And what I have found really interesting about this is that it's so different. Like, my sexual energy is actually quite contained at this time, and very active on another level with Gaia and with that sacred union within, but it's not searching for a way to release outside of itself. And that's definitely something that I've been noticing, like, wow. And because of it, I really feel like it's a new experience of rising in love and rising with this sacred sexual energy. And because of that, we're kind of magnetizing others that are doing the same. So I'm learning so much about it right now.
Absolutely. And it really is like, we always attract what we are, right?
Yes.
And we've attracted past things, I suppose, looking for that match, that perfect match, that divine union, that something inside our body wants to connect with and express. And it's way beyond the logical, isn't it? Or what the mind can say is attractive, or what it wants. It's just something from the soul, something from the body, something really deep. I'm looking for something, and then, having so far not really met that. And
yes.
Also attracting the other side, which was what we talked about last time, that slavery, that entrapment, that, the other side of things. And so now that feels like everything that was blocking that complete co-creation, that divine union, seems to go, it's gone. And if it's not totally gone, it's going rapidly. And
Yeah.
I'm experiencing it through my spine as well, massively, like release. I had about 3 releases in the space of 2 weeks, like big old programmings coming out of my spine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, whoa, and I feel my spine activated. And if you're into chakras and things, I can feel like my chakras along my back becoming so more awake than ever, so activated. And I'm feeling them really receiving the heart energy in through the back of the heart center, receiving, and through my coccyx as well. The base of my spine feels so rooted into the earth like never ever before. This is all, it's like, it's not new, because I've always noticed that, or for a long time, but this is new because it's like, it's never felt like this before. And the energy that's coming up my spine and down my spine and into my spine, into my body, it is like receiving upgrades. It's like receiving new codes. And it's like, yeah, that awakening of a different feeling in my sexuality. Like you're saying, it's like,
yes,
not like lustful or just, oh, I feel horny today. It's like, it's an arising. It's really like that. It's amazing.
That is such a beautiful way to say that, because I mean, I'm someone who has had such a journey around sexuality, from sexual molestation, almost being sold into sex slavery. I used to do burlesque. Like, I have explored so many aspects of sexuality without any shame. And it was important to me to walk that path without shame, because we were taught so much to be ashamed of our sexuality. And one of the things that I saw happening was, well, I'm sort of in this lifetime being projected onto as like a sacred prostitute. And I feel like that has really come from that story of Adam and Eve in the garden. Mm. And what happens is, when you have been painted with this and it's in your psyche, these things go really deep.
Really.
So as I identified as a priestess, there was very much a part of me that felt like it was my job to sexually heal men and to assist them in their awakening by using my body, not on a conscious level, but it was what I had been taught my worth was. Your worth is in how sexy you are, how many men find you sexy. You know, it's something that I was really noticing for many, many years, but it was still a jail cell. It was still something that I couldn't get out of. It wasn't time yet. It wasn't divine timing yet. And I feel like now what's happened is, in this unification with Gaia, she's just like, you're a rose. Like, yes, like, you're all of it. You're the fire, you're the diamond, you're the rose, you're the ocean, you're all of it, just like I am. But do you understand how sacred you are to me, and that it was never your job to heal men, like, as in their sexuality, and that you're actually causing them to fall by doing so and telling them that they don't have the power to do that themselves? Wow. It's just like, wow.
That's just so massive.
I know.
I think a lot of women, especially, well, I have a lot of women in my life who completely identify with that priestess role. And we all talk about it like a memory. It's like we have a memory, and it's not maybe as vivid as, last week, but for some of us it is.
Yeah.
It's a cellular memory. It's a memory in the waters. It's a memory in the womb. Your soul remembers it. And I know that, it goes so deep, and it feels like so long ago. The roots go really deep. And, if you think of a plant and the root going through the earth and it going down, 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 all the layers of history that root goes through, that root has experienced, and where we, that taproot, the taproot, in other words, the memory of our soul and how deep that goes. And here we are on the surface of the earth now, in this life, in this body, but the root has all of that information of every layer of history that we have experienced. And I would say, as a soul, but also because of our ancestral lineage, we literally do all go back to the original man and woman, whatever that was, right?
Yes.
The journey of the masculine and feminine throughout the literal ages of history is in our memory. And for some people, that's more conscious than others, and certain aspects of that memory are there, and other parts of it's been unconscious and blanked out and forgotten, probably because it's too traumatic, to be honest. And it's like we don't want to remember the horrible stuff, the painful stuff.
Right.
But I can definitely speak for myself that I have an absolute knowing that not just one lifetime, let's say, or in my ancestral history or my soul history, have I been a priestess who's worked in that way, but many different times, in many different ways, in different cultures even. And so it's like my body knows what it is to have sexual magic in one area, or sexual healing in another, or sexual rape and abuse in another, and the misuse of the feminine. But what seems to be most common is a sense of being controlled and owned one way or another. And even in the temple, and being that dedicated to, even before the time of Jesus Christ, not being, there's being that, not just to God or to the Christ energy, but the dedicated to the divine feminine, to the earth, to Gaia. it still felt like there was a manipulation and control involved. That's how it feels to me, where it wasn't totally allowed pure, or it wasn't, you know, maybe it was still in the dark ages or something. It just doesn't, it feels manipulative and it feels controlled or controlling. Does that make sense to you, Nina?
It does. I very much feel that way. And I feel like that control was so, I know for me and for so many women, because now that I'm out of it, I see it in other women who are still in it. And I'm just like, oh, I feel for them, because a lot of them, what they share is they often attract a lot of disrespect. They often attract someone who sexually objectifies them. They can't see it's because they're sexually objectifying themselves. And I was
absolutely true.
I was that woman. There's so many things I want to say, but there's so many things I want to say, but yes, I feel like in the collective psyche, karmically, my soul remembered so many lifetimes that I have been in Egypt, all of them, like the sex magic and the sacred prostitute, and somehow glorifying this. And I was really around a lot of women that were, this is the role of the priestess. And what I started to realize was, I don't know if this is the role of the priestess, or is this just what we've been taught is the role of the priestess? Because the more that I'm exploring this, the more that I'm realizing it's really kind of being bought and sold in different various ways in your sexuality. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's an actual transaction of money, but this is how it began to feel to me. I also began to realize that it would begin to break down my body and make me very sick, taking in the energy of the man that I was with, because he wasn't processing it for himself, would start to make me feel very sick and actually cause me to fall deeper into things that weren't really mine. And I feel like that is very much something that has been going on way before, before Christ, and for a very, very long time. And when I kind of trace that, what comes up for me is very much this story of the fallen angels and the women of man, the Garden of Eden, and this serpent, which is really the poison, if you will, that we've all drunk, which has caused men to look at women as seductresses and to look at us as though, we will lead them astray. We are not to be trusted. And for women to see ourselves that way without even realizing that that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. We very much take on man's energy, don't we? When we're with a man, not just being around it. Obviously, when we're around people, we're empathizing, we absorb other people's energies. But in that act of, penetration, we literally, it can affect our DNA. We take on a man's essence.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many men are aware of that. I don't know how many women are aware of that. I think more these days. I think people are becoming more aware, but that the necessity, the vitalness of being able to clean out our energetic womb,
yes,
our energetic yoni, and obviously physical cleanliness, but it's not really, the body knows how to care for itself. The body knows how to cleanse. We're natural rebirthing, cleansing bodies, aren't we? And I love that you talked about the snake, Nina, because for me, the snake, there's a beautiful representation of a snake where it regularly sheds its skin and renews itself, and it's soft. It doesn't have bones. It doesn't have structure. It's flexible. It's soft. It can coil in spirals and circles. It's very feminine. It's very sensual and soft and very vulnerable, because you can easily crush snakes, they don't have bones. They're just squishy. They're very vulnerable and they're very soft, and they shed skins regularly because they're always going through that death, life, rebirth cycle like a woman. So for me, snakes have that context as well. And we do that. We naturally cleanse within ourselves. However, I think when we're conscious about it, it brings a whole another element. And to cleanse ourselves, our psyche and our energy, our DNA of a man's energy, unless obviously we're co-creating and he's planting in us a seed of something pure, very pure intention, very high vibrational, love, bliss, beauty, creation, and it's done in a co-creational way, in which case we can take that seed and create with it. But I want us to come back to that, because let's just undo that part and go back to the, go back to
that. Yeah,
we'll come back to that. But the cleansing part, I think that's really important that women do that. And so I want to come back to the Garden of Eden as well, and what you were saying about the snakes and the poison. So we need to remember these things. But I also really want to ask you, so when you said you've been nearly sold as a sex slave, and you had that abuse as a child, how did you heal from that, Nina?
Well, it was a long process, and there were different angles. A lot of it had to do with like going into seeing a counselor, but also I realized that the talk therapy was not actually healing the spiritual wound. And I felt that I had been fragmented, because I knew that I had become frozen in these moments, and aspects of me had left and not returned. And also, when you go through sexual molestation or rape or trauma, there can be openings that occur, tears in the spirit that allow other energies or entities to come in. I see this all the time with my clients. So I've yet to meet someone who has gone through a sexual molestation or rape or some type of abuse and not had that happen. It seems to be very much.
I would agree with you. Yeah.
Yes. So I was, and I have to say this because I completely do not see myself as a victim. And I say this with so much love. I don't want to upset anyone when I say this, but for me, I'm at a place in my journey where I really understand that I chose all of these experiences, and all of them have been the greatest catalysts for my awakening. This absolutely had to do with the ancestral stuff that I took on, my own piece of what the role I came to play. It is very much the priestess path, actually. And so by exploring it and on this journey and this path of healing, it led me to India, to go meditate and to go be in the presence of enlightened masters who only caused me to see that which I am even more within myself. It led me to theta healing. It led me to getting closer and closer to the creator. And I actually feel like it's been my greatest teacher along the way. Really, I really do feel that. So it's been a long process, but I would say first it's just surrendering and asking creator, inviting God, inviting Christ into that space, and asking for that healing, asking for the lesson, asking to be shown. Another piece that has been very strong that actually set me free from this kind of like in this new sexual purification process that I'm in right now was that I realized that I was completely still in judgment of the aspect of the masculine that is the dark masculine that would do that. And I was like, oh, well, that person from my family or that person in my life, I didn't come from that person. Like, that's not in me, that's in them. And one day I was sitting in the bath. I always receive a lot in the bath, like you, right? The water.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, because in my own personal relationship, I'm going through something, I'm asking to grow. Show me. I surrender. What is the lesson? And this very, my higher self very clearly said to me, you have to face that everything that exists outside of you exists within you. You have to forgive, and you have to even just witness, look at the part of you that has been the violent masculine. Because as long as you fight against it, as long as you kick and scream, as long as you're like pushing against it, you want to know why you attract predatory men? Because you reject them. And I was like, oh. So I did. I sat and I looked and I saw lifetimes that I had been the predatory man. I had done this with the feminine. I had seen the lifetimes I had been the dark priestess. Or I had seen these lifetimes. I had seen my own lessons within that. But no, I wasn't ready to see the dark masculine. And Tara, that really was like one of the final pieces for me in this was, okay, I forgive you because I already learned that lesson. I chose to go through this again. And thank you for being the greatest teacher. I don't believe that anything happens that we do not desire the desire isn't the word, but that we don't create for our own learning and our own growth. So I know that's really hard for some women to hear, because I'm not absolutely saying you deserved it, it's your fault. What I'm saying is, from a higher level of higher self, when you get to that place and you can see things beyond duality of right or wrong, you see it all as experience. And from that place, when I began to see I had experiences that were not right or wrong, I began to go, so what do I do with these experiences? And these experiences do not define me. So that's been a huge lesson for me in this lifetime.
And that's really humbling, isn't it? Because there's the seeing it from the higher perspective, but then also, and I know that you do this, and it's not to stay in the higher perspective, I see it all, therefore I know. It's to actually embody that knowledge, which means looking at your belief patterns, looking at your thoughts and what you think about yourself and what you think about others and how you manifest that, looking at, like any hurt or betrayal or judgment that you hold in your heart, and like you said, forgiving. And it takes such humility to truly forgive. It really does, because ultimately, why do we forgive? Because we need the healing, we need the relief, we need the love. And underneath all of that is that I actually really need real love, and I need to love myself and be able to live with myself. And therefore I'm going to forgive myself, and I'm going to forgive others. And that's such a courageous act, to be that brave, to be that humble, to be that open, to be that in your heart. It takes a real warrior, a warrioress person to really forgive, and not just I forgive you, but it's also the other side, isn't it, of like, and I forgive myself.
Yes.
And it's humbling. And then of course then you have the emotional stuff to process, and you have to do the emotional cleansing. There's the waters, it's the flow, it's the, because abuse can really sit in us, can't it, like a dark sediment that settles in the bottom of the barrel, and we try and live on the surface and go everything's fine. But actually kind of it takes, again, a great connection to truth and to love, to just say, right, I'm going to be so loving and so present with myself and get the support I need as well, to be able to actually process that emotional heaviness or darkness or pain, so that you can anchor yourself into your own body and in your own divine right exist. Owning the base chakra, the sexuality. And this is for men and women. This is not, one side. It's how do we get that spirit, that higher self? I know what it really is, into the form, into the physical body, into this chalice, this beautiful like holy grail chalice, and put our spirit into the body. And it does mean cleaning all the way to the bottom of that barrel, if you like, to the bottom of the river, underneath all of that sediment, to get to the nastiest, darkest, stickiest parts, the deepest shame, the deepest guilt, whatever it is, the deepest wounds. and be able to bring our love and forgiveness and awareness, that higher self-awareness, into the base center. And then you can own you. You're sitting in your power, in your base, which is where our power is, in the base center, in the yoni, in the testicles, in, the base. It's powerful, isn't it?
It really is. I'm going back to a moment that I had where it was, for me, the first time I had taken ayahuasca. And I experienced seeing my womb split open. It was very intense. It was like something that was this dark serpent entered and split open my womb. I don't feel that in that moment that's what was occurring. I feel that it was a remembrance on a soul level of the entrance of the black serpent, which is that, yes, absolutely.
Tell us about that.
It was searing pain. And what was interesting was that it brought on my moon. So in the middle of the ceremony, I started mooning right after this splitting happened in the womb. And of course, it was terrifying for me at first. It was very terrifying to witness this black serpent entering my being. And then all of a sudden I was in, hell, basically. And everyone around me was screaming and they were experiencing death. And so I sat in this for a while. And then something in my being just knew there's something higher. It just knew to rise. And so as I began rising in my spirit, I began entering different dimensions. I understand now that what was happening was I was visiting around, I was going down to like the second dimension, the third dimension, which is that sort of those hellish dimensions where souls are in bondage. And there can be aspects of us that are still stuck down there. And I understand now in my journey since then that I was basically seeing where all the different aspects of me, there's no me, but you know what I mean?
Do you mean like sort of the less conscious, more ignorance-based levels of, our origin before we became more conscious?
Yes, and let's say like astral cages, as we talked about before. I was seeing the areas where I was still locked in astral cages.
Right.
I didn't have that understanding at that time, but I do now, because since then I've gone through some very clearly transparent experiences on no medicine whatsoever, woken up in this reality, in those astral cages, and realized that we have the power to become sovereign throughout all timelines and quantum levels, which is the true work right now.
We need to make a note of these things because we have to come back and talk about that.
Yes.
I can carry on with the snake.
So with the snake, I ended up leaving, traveling in my soul and returning to, I believe, where I came from. I was reuniting. And by the end of the journey, it was very much this rebirth through Christ and this just tremendous healing. And so I feel like every journey that I've ever gone through, where I've had to dive into the darkness and gone through duality and gone through these aspects of death, everything has always led to one thing, and that is that a remembrance. I would always remember, I am Christed. I am indestructible light. I am love. So I feel like that is so important for us to remember, is that love really is a frequency. It really is a highest vibration, and it can heal you. It can take what was meant to destroy you and take you and lift you up so high, and take that thing that happened to you that would make you feel like I'm marked for life, or I can't ever fly, my wings are broken, and it can make your wings that much stronger and lift you up that much higher. So I really have been recently, kind of what's come to me is that all of these things that we go through in life, like these extreme traumas, we're not victims. And I knew that, but I've had this beautiful new awakening around, what are they? they are initiations.
Yes. Yeah,
And
I agree.
wow, I mean, when you
I
see
agree.
it that
Totally. Absolutely. I use that word a lot. Absolutely, that's what it is.
yeah.
Because there is a way, there is always a path, and that way, that path is love. And everything, basically, you talked about, you know, love heals everything, and it's the lack of love or apparent absence of love, because there's never actually an absence of love. Love is all things everywhere all the time. But when we have a perceived lack of love, an absence of love, a void, a gap, you know, a misunderstanding and ignorance, that's what causes the pain. That, in my experience, like you said, you know, working with clients and doing people's soul readings and the whole thing, looking at the records of time, Akashic, everything, looking into history, ancestors, it's always that apparent perceived lack of love that causes all the problems in the first place.
Exactly.
So, talking about tying up the timelines, because like the snake that eats its own tail, I can't remember the name of it. Zesis talked about the name of it.
Infinity.
Where the snake, it actually makes a circle and eats its own tail. And it's like the completion, Ubuntu or something like that. I can't remember. A burrow, something like that. I can't remember. I'm not very good at remembering words like that. But essentially, that for me is a symbol, right? So coming back to the Garden of Eden, and we've got this, we're talking about the completion of timelines and the completion of cycles within cycles. So lifetime cycles, soul cycles, ages of cycles, you know, galactic cycles, solar cycles, everything cycles, all cycles within cycles are coming to this incredible completion where the timeline comes back to the beginning, where the beginning meets the end. Like that circle, like that cycle is completing. So it means all patterns and programming that's happened to us along our journey from that beginning, whenever the beginning was of man and woman, of the original man and woman, of Adam and Eve, whatever that story is, and we're going to dive into that more. If that's the beginning or a beginning of a cycle, let's say, because it's all, there's so many cycles, a beginning of a cycle, a timeline that we have journeyed on, got further and further away from our innocence, from our purity, from our kind of divine conception, if you like. And we, let's say, fallen from grace, fallen angels, fell into hell, fell into, you know, lust, greed, envy, sexual miscreants or adultery, you know, and going deep into that darkness and periods of history, right? And we've all got that in our memory, whether it's our soul or our ancestral memory, we've all been there. And we have it, we have those memories within us. And so as these cycles are completing now, it's like in order for a cycle to come complete, we have to understand, make sense of, rectify, make peace with and harmonize all of that which wasn't love, all of that which was our ignorance, all of that which has been painful and dark and suffering and struggling. It's now coming into our consciousness on a collective level, not just the odd individual that has these memories and experiences like you and I, Nina, but it's having the impact on the collective level. So if you're watching this and you're like, I'm getting the beginnings of that, you're going to get more. If it hasn't started for you yet, it soon will, don't worry. And you may be in the thick of it. I think most people are really getting it now, and those that aren't getting it, they will.
Yes. I completely resonate with what you're saying, because it's like we have to realize that we as creation chose to experience separation, and extreme separation through all aspects of experience. So what is more separation than rape and molestation? We went as far to the side of the polarity of separation as we could. And when you come to that place of forgiveness for self and for creation, it's almost beyond forgiveness, because it's almost just this understanding that we just wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And now we're choosing new lessons, and we don't have to keep repeating these same lessons over and over and over. I think that what happens, and I know when I work with people in theta healing and in the session work that I do, what I see is there will be programs that get installed through these experiences, or there are programs deep in the psyche that begin to replay the same recording over and over and over and over. And I think what would be really amazing for people to understand is that no matter what you're dealing with, understand that you have the ability to and deprogram yourself like a computer matrix system. So if you have, and it's all through your beliefs. So if you can locate those beliefs and be really honest with yourself, and that's what's so hard for most people, is because we've been taught to be ashamed of thinking bad things about ourselves. We've been taught to be ashamed about seeing that, like, oh no, I'm not the bad guy, that's the bad guy. And I think that that's really the danger that religion has created, and that story of Eden, and that is, it's just attacked us in such a twisted manner that it's caused us to resist that which we are, which is actually the key to freedom. Did I say that clearly?
You totally did. And I agree with you, because also I feel like we're trying to hold on to innocence.
Yeah.
By saying, no, I'm innocent. It wasn't me, and trying to hold on to a sense of purity and innocence. But there's also ignorance in that. In innocence, there is an untapped knowledge that you could say is ignorant.
Yeah.
You know, because it hasn't yet, innocence needs to do the journey to gain the wisdom to understand a fuller sense of itself, to unlock the wisdom, and just to remain innocent and pure, and like, everybody else is bad, it's not me. And to reject that is actually sabotaging your own awakening, and it's actually sabotaging the collective awakening, because it still says I'm innocent and you're the bad guy, or the other way around, like we were talking about before in the twin flames one, where you might be like, well, I know I'm the bad guy, I'm the devil, I'm the demon, I'm a vampire, I'm a nasty piece of work, I'm a witch, I'm a whatever. Right? And saying everybody else is more pure and light, and I don't deserve them, and I should be locked up, I should be ashamed, I should be on my own, I should be, you know. And we tend to polarize ourselves in one of those categories. And so they will attract one another, you know. The innocent, it's not my fault, will attract the person that says, well, I'm the bad guy and I'm just going to completely fuck you over right now.
Yes.
Right. And because we attract, everything has an equilibrium in the world, in the universe, and everything wants to awaken to itself. So we will attract the opposite of ourselves, which is also the exact mirror of who we are as well.
Yes.
So that the person who's trapped in an evil, and I am evil and dark and bad complex, will see the light in another and be like, I want that light so badly. And it's actually their own light that they're not seeing. And then the innocent, pure, it's not me, the victim one, I want to stay like a child. I want to stay unresponsible for my own life and my own choices and what I attract, you know, and stay pure. They will be like, that evil and darkness in somebody else is kind of powerful. It's like you said before, it's kind of sexy, it's kind of alluring. Even though it's horrible, there's a weird fascination with it. There's a weird addiction to it, because the two need each other, right? To see ourselves, we all mirror one another perfectly, and then we see who we truly are. And with that's where the humility, the heart, the love can come in, when we just both acknowledge that and accept that. Say, yes, you are me.
Yes.
And how amazing.
It can't be any other way. It can't be any other way. We are ultimately one. But we've been taught to say, oh, the murderer, no, you know, no, that person's bad, or the drunk, or and I feel like, not to go back to Disney, but I know for me, Disney really brainwashed me into this idea that you have to either be the the evil witch or the princess. It was like there was, and it definitely went deeply into my psyche. And of course, I really identified with the princess and the innocence and the light and love. And I was very much not wanting to face my past, especially around my sexuality. So I would just kind of stay up in this cloud of innocence. And because of that, I kept attracting the most predatory people to me, because that was the story that I kept writing over and over and over was, if you are this polar opposite in embodying this kind of like innocence to be preyed upon, you're going to attract the big bad wolf.
Yeah, very much so.
Now, outside of or in a sacred container of relationship, of expressing sexuality with a partner, I think that all of this is part of Tantra. I think that it is the tantric path. And it's beautiful to be able to embody and play out all these different shapes and forms. But as far as living your day-to-day life, it's important to understand what kind of energy you're putting out, because you're absolutely going to attract the reflection of it. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, I think that in some ways we've been taught as women to be so ashamed of our sexuality that I know so many women that they've never even had an orgasm, and in the bedroom they're just shut down. And I think that's so, so sad. And for me, I think it's really important to explain to women that it is this safe space of expression and creativity where you can be safe to play out whatever you need to play out in a safe way. Like, you are the ocean, you are the sea, you are the sun, there doesn't need to be this judgment of how you need to behave or how you shouldn't behave or how you should behave. But as far as living day to day, walking down the street and things like this, understanding, when you understand that your sexuality is sacred and you hold yourself with reverence and you hold yourself with respect and you hold your container and your sexual container with reverence and with respect, other people reflect that back to you.
Very much so. I feel like that's why we've had all those experiences where our sexuality has not been sacred to ourselves, because we gave ourselves away and we thought we were worthless and nothing, or because it was taken, whichever way it happened. That in order to understand the sacred union and the sacred sexuality that both male and female hold, that it's like we have to wander off the path. We needed to get lost. We needed to not understand. We needed to experience the pain and the abuse and everything, so that we actually can get back on the right path and then understand why it's so sacred. What's the real magic in that incredible conscious union, which is again like coming back to the Garden of Eden, right? So if in the beginning, how was it in the beginning? Like, we're told the story, and there's different stories. It's Adam and Eve, but God created Adam first, and then from Adam's rib he made Eve. And some people say, some legends and stories say, Eve wasn't the first one. He made Lilith first, but Lilith was naughty and she was too wild and sexy. So we got rid of Lilith and we brought in Eve, who was nice and pure and did what Adam wanted her to do. And, you know, and then it was Eve's fault because she picked the apple and she was told not to. She picked the apple, and then she brought the whole downfall of all of mankind. And it's her fault.
How convenient.
Right? So we've got the apple that's, you know, the poison fruit, just like in the fairy stories.
Just like in Snow White. I mean, how many times is the apple?
And we also know, isn't it interesting, what apple is associated with, what apple is now? And with the story that's going on in the world, what if the apple represents the detriment of humanity and the downfall of humanity, and it's poison that looks good, enticing, alluring, right? And we've all bitten the apple. Isn't that interesting? I hadn't thought about that before. Anyway, just an interesting thing, right? And the snake, you know, the temptation. Let's just like, let's just unpick that for a moment. Let's just feel into that. What feels true about that? Is that true?
I'm holding back my words because what's come through is so not graceful, but I'm gonna give my
I want
permission.
you to say it. I want you to
I'm
say
just
it.
gonna say what I'm hearing is like we're all just being fucked with.
Totally. By that story, you mean?
By that story and that what that story represents. It's interesting that right now, Bill Gates is very much tied with Apple and Microsoft, and that there's this thing around Apple, and most people at this point know what is going on. They're awake enough to be aware of Apple is very much tied with toxicity and poison and the desire to take your human nature and merge you with artificial intelligence and essentially dehumanize you, cause you to feel more androgynous in nature than identified with your own sexuality, which is a very simple way to enslave people and groom them to become what you want them to become. So it's very, very interesting. I never saw those two together, but the first thing that I just heard was essentially we are being sold a story that has caused us to feel completely disconnected from truth and completely disconnected from our sacredness.
Yeah.
Completely disconnected from Gaia.
But isn't that what the Garden of Eden was? It was that moment of where manipulation, the temptation, manipulation, envy, all the 7 deadly sins came in after that. And, men became lustful because of Eve, and she bit the apple, and, and what about Lilith and this whole thing?
Yeah.
What's true about that? What does feel true? Anything? Any of it?
What I'm seeing right now is the Garden of Eden is not a place, it's a state of being.
Yes, I feel the same.
We could call it 5D New Earth, but what is that? That just means you've raised your frequency to a place of resonance where you are living a 5th dimensional reality or higher, and you are experiencing Gaia in that way. I've had some experiences recently where I feel like I'm Eve in the Garden of Eden, not because I'm trying to be innocent or pure, but because I'm feeling Gaia in such a new way. And in this purification with my womb, with her womb, and seeing this diamond light energy in my womb in a way I've never seen, it just feels so beautiful. I feel like one of her cosmic flowers. And understanding more and more what that Garden of Eden really is you can go to that place through your heart. It's always available. The trap is believing that you're unworthy of it. The trap is believing that you're a sinner. The trap is believing that you're fallen, whether you identify with that being a fallen angel or that you fell from grace. Everybody that I work with in my sessions, almost every single person has the programming. And I know, Tara, you're going to go, yep, because we all had it too. I have failed my mission. I fell from heaven. I'm a fallen angel. God is disappointed in me. And I really realized that these are collective programs that have come from these 3rd dimensional, 2nd dimensional, the poison apple that we've been sold. And we really need to wake up into that and to realize that this is an entire matrix system of programming that we have been sold. That apple represents so many different aspects of that matrix and programming. Yeah. So we have to go through a deconditioning process of going, who taught me this? And is that true? And for me, that began really when I started to meditate, and I got involved with Osho, which was the best thing for me, because Osho is all around talking about sexuality and not being ashamed, but bringing consciousness into everything. And as soon as I started to be the witness of my thoughts and the witness of my actions, and my entire life changed. I mean, all of a sudden I was like, in 2 weeks, I can't drink alcohol. It was just bringing in consciousness.
Yeah.
Because our higher self, our consciousness knows. It is already in that Garden of Eden space. It knows.
And that's why I completely feel that it was the wisdom, the innate, it was the wisdom not yet realized, the innocent wisdom. That's kind of, wisdom in ignorance, the latent wisdom that's inside innocence, that if Eve was real and the whole story is real, which I believe there's definitely a sacred element to that beginning, and she bit the apple, which is knowledge. She knew something in her guided, even if it's an innocent child, like, oh, I really want that. That looks, something inside, some deep latent knowledge made her do that, because it completely catalyzed the whole journey of humanity, so that we know who we are. My internet just went then. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
And for the masculine to not be like, well, it's the woman's fault, just in case that program is still there. She was the one, right? It's her fault. Say, actually, it's because of that moment. Let's flip this over. That we've had this incredible journey of humanity. We have gone dark. We have gone deep. We have gone into some really ugly places. But we had to do that in order to know who we truly are, to know the fullness of our power as sovereign, co-creator, divine beings. So if we know what we can create when we're in ignorance, what can we create in consciousness? And it's like, it's part of the, I suppose it's part of like the Recce mission on Earth first, discover what's here, discover what I'm not, and reveal who I truly am by taking that journey. And we wouldn't have done it if Eve hadn't eaten the apple.
That's true. That's very true. And we wouldn't
and
realize.
I also feel like the snake gets a really bad rep. Is my internet still on? I feel like it's a bit glitchy.
You're still on.
Okay. I feel like the snake gets that bad rep too, because when I was doing soul readings for people, I have phases of things memories or parts of the records that I tap into. Each client will give me like a different perspective on it or a bit more knowledge, and then I'll move on to another part of some story somewhere else. So I have phases, right? And I was having a phase of seeing clients that were connected to this, and the snake originally was not fork-tongued. That's how I saw it with my eyes, reading these records, right? That the snake did not have a forked tongue. It was very, very beautiful. Like the snake was the epitome of beauty. She was the epitome of sensuality, of softness, of vulnerability, of rebirth. And to be able to wrap herself and hold tightly, securely, like a mother with her babe, or with, like with the eggs. And snake was trusted because it was like she was traveling along the energy lines in the earth, and people, the other animals, like they wouldn't, they knew she was vulnerable because she didn't have bones and a hard exterior. And there was the truth. It was like she just was a truth speaker. And then, so what happened with the story eventually is that then Eve has brought the downfall. She's bitten the apple, and then the woman then gets labeled manipulative, and that it's her fault, and she's fallen and whatever, and she's caused this, and she's blamed. And then that sense of manipulation, the snake transformed as a symbol of the feminine, transformed. Then the tongue was split, because then her psyche was split. Like I speak the truth, but it's going to hurt you. It's going to it's no longer like singular as in source. It then became male and female. It became like black and white duality. We left the garden of union, of total equality, of total divine union, of knowledge of who we are as a oneness of being. And then the tongue split of the snake to represent the different paths in duality, the light path and the dark path. But it was still truth, but there was the truth that was good and the truth that was painful and hurt and kind of stung you. And then the snake got the bad reputation, and it was like, then it was to be feared because it, you know, it was poisonous. The truth was poisonous. The truth hurt. So that's kind of what I heard. And I just, you know, in that session at the time, I was just like, wow, I really love you, snake. I feel you, because it was like the symbol of the feminine.
That makes a lot of sense. You were asking me what happened in that journey after the black snake entered my womb. It wasn't that journey, but it was years later that I decided to have kind of a follow-up journey, but in a very small, I'm so sensitive. So I took like a homeopathic amount because I really can't handle, I go far out without anything. I have to work on staying here anyways. But that time the snake turned into a rainbow cobra. And I felt like it was a full circle healing of understanding that through the healing process, we realize we are the rainbow. So I really, what you just shared, I feel is so potent, and it is the key. It is a master key to unlocking this lie that we've been sold, which is to resist and to hate that which we decided to experience, which was duality. Because as long as you resist and hate it, you'll always be the victim of it. If you can go, wow, okay, I chose to experience yin and yang. I chose to experience the duality. I chose to experience the split of the tongue. Because of it, I grew tremendously. And there are still others that are still wanting to experience that duality more than I, because maybe they're in a different part of their process or their journey. The freer we become, because we step outside of judgment of all of it, and we just become the witness. And we have compassion because we've been there. We have compassion for the rapist. We have compassion for the alcoholic. We have compassion. Now, to be very clear, this does not mean that you get into a partnership with them. It does not mean that you don't have healthy boundaries. I am absolutely not saying that. What I'm saying is, it is in that honesty that you also honestly realize where someone is. And within that discernment, you create very healthy or strong boundaries to meet them where they're at, because they are not where you are. And that is just an honest, that is one of the biggest lessons that I have learned, is boundaries are a huge part of unconditional love.
The safety of the Garden of Eden, right? It needs protected.
Yes.
The sacred needs protected. The innocence needs protecting. And I do feel that that sacredness of our innocence as a human species, as a human being, has been protected. You know, it's all contained within the Garden of Eden, the whole story. And the whole story is contained on this beautiful earth, which is extremely beautiful, and is more beautiful than I think we realize, because a lot of us only really see the superficial surface beauty, and we haven't even begun to really see the depth of the beauty in the earth that we live on, and seen the multiple layers of her beauty underneath. And so I feel like as we do that, then it's also about revealing the hidden layers, or it's not hidden, it's just it hasn't yet been seen. You have to have the eyes to see it, right? You can hide something in plain sight and people won't see it until they suddenly have the eyes that can see. So you know, whether that's, you know, higher dimensions that we talk about, Nina, that are normal to us because we see them, and other people will be like, is that a new thing? Is fifth dimension new? No, it's always been here.
Right.
In fact, it's who we are. We have these, when I see dimensions, they're literally layers of our energy field.
Yes.
Right? It's different. It's us coming from absolute highest frequency of light into density. And they are layers like a rainbow, but, you know, not as well. Density, 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 density into form. So those dimensions represent part of our body. And so it's always been there. We were created this way. Did we activate it? Were we awake in it? Were we conscious of it? Could we see it? Could we engage with it and relate with it? That's another thing. It's like we move into ourselves, don't we? It's always been there. And then you have to get the eyes that can actually see it. And I feel like that's the same with the beauty of creation, the beauty of this Garden of Eden of the earth, the beauty of the divine feminine, that she's not just a ball of rock spinning in outer space with some nice trees and rivers and waterfalls on. She's an incredible goddess being that has many layers of exquisite magic and beauty, so much so that your eyes would jump out of your head, because it's so, until you get the eyes to see it, it will be revealed to you when you have the eyes to see that. And that I'm really excited about us awakening to that as a collective, because I mean, it's unbelievable, right? It's it's beautiful. It's beyond.
It's our dream that we've held in our hearts for so long, and we're actually seeing the physical manifestation of it through all the reflections around us. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, we're ready, aren't we? It's like, doing the journey of realizing who we're not and what we don't like and what's painful, so that we're now ready to receive the gift of who we truly are, and what truly is on this planet, and what's truly possible in our own inner garden, because like you said, it's the Garden of Eden is a state of being. It's who we are. And have we cultivated our garden? How do we perceive our inner snake, which is our sexuality, our sensuality? How are we relating to ourselves? Are we humble enough to receive who we are and drop all the bullshit and all the stories and come home? It's a humble path to love. You have to drop all the baggage, all the stories, all the ego, because it doesn't fit through the door of the heart. It just doesn't. You have to be like absolutely heart of a child. But what's wonderful, it's like the heart of a child in innocence, like our little babies, young children, but also the heart of it's that kind of enwizened or awakened, having done the journey, now come back, and that wisdom is, what's the word I'm looking for?
It's embodied in you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yes.
So you're no longer ignorant in your innocence. You're wise in your innocence.
Yeah.
And that again takes an enormous amount of humility to be able to receive that and to feel the love and the unconditional love in the wisdom of it.
Yeah.
It's like there's no words.
Absolutely. And I feel like a huge part of it is that now you have discernment. I was someone who had no idea what the word discernment meant.
Same, exactly.
No idea. I remember one day someone said to me, "Sounds like you're learning lessons about discernment." This was years ago. And I was like, "What's that?" So yes, I was learning huge lessons about discernment. And discernment is another master key, because when you can really discern where someone is on their journey, not based on what they say to you, but it's a feeling of resonance, and you trust that inner voice that's guiding you, even if they're selling you a story, because maybe they're experiencing, being the fraud. Maybe they're experiencing seducing. When you can understand that all these different, they're really like archetypes. I'm being an actress and a singer, I love to look at the world as a stage. And I don't get so attached to the different personalities, but I kind of enjoy them. But I'm really honest about where people are at. And it's fun in that way. And also within that, I create very strong boundaries that keep my Garden of Eden safe. And who I invite into that garden is because of the wisdom and the discernment. But if you don't have your lights on and you're not willing to discern and see, and you're just like, it's all light and love and everybody's light and love, and you're going to get burnt, because yes, it is all light and love. They might be learning a lesson and they might want to participate in the next act in a way that you're really not, is going to cause you to fall rather than rise. I think that's really, really an important piece for people to understand is, where is this person currently vibrating at? What are they calling in? What are they? And the more that we become very conscious and aware and awake and are honestly willing to feel truth, we'll feel that immediately just being in someone's presence.
Yeah, in a way, like I feel like I could always see the light and the dark. No, there was a time when I didn't want to see the dark because the dark was too scary and weird. So I was just focusing on the light, and I totally got burned. I was one of those, I'm going to stay in my innocence and stay in the light and the love and up in that high vibration and not embody myself. And therefore, because I wasn't living in me, I was available for other people to take over me in lots of different ways. And that was incredibly demeaning. It kind of enhanced that belief, or proved that belief, that I'm not worth anything, I'm nothing, and I shouldn't really be on this planet, right? I shouldn't even be here as a human being. I'm so unworthy. It just enhanced that whole belief. And it took me a long time to really kind of go through all those layers of cleaning and cleaning and cleaning and cleaning and realizations and the breakthroughs. But even that discernment piece, like I know that sometimes, like even though I can see it and my alarm bells are ringing and I know I shouldn't go there, right? The danger signs are there, the barriers, and I'm like, no, but what if I'm wrong? What if, because I can see the light as well, I can see the beauty of that soul, that powerful and that alluring, and I'm like, oh, but what if? And I have been burned and burned and burned. But each time I get burned, it's like putting that boundary in place and not moving the boundary. Because it's true. If somebody doesn't, come to meet you, you will go to meet them. Meet them where they're at, or they will meet you where you're at. And how about we just meet in the middle? And it really is. Each person has to do their own steps to, and I don't mean compromise. I don't mean that. I mean, come down off a high horse. Come out of your protective, it wasn't my fault bubble, or I'm not good enough, and just come into that place of the absolute, where there's neutrality almost, where it's just purified, where you've learned the lessons, where you've understood, where you've released and you've cleansed, and you've shed that skin like the snake, and you have that rebirth time. And then it's like, okay, now I'm ready to sit with another human being in trust, because I'm clearing all that programming out. And the right person will come to meet you, who's ready to meet you where you're at, and you're ready to meet them where they're at, and have a sacred divine union relationship, which is coming back to what I was talking about. Something inside our DNA, I feel it so intensely, is going, and now you're ready to express this, you're ready to create this. And it's like, it's so ancient, and yet it's like it's been waiting all that time to get activated, for the time to, for the now to happen. So it's ready to activate and become manifest. And that's why I feel like we're kind of doing the full cycle and coming back to that Garden of Eden. And yes, Earth will bloom in a way that has not yet been seen before, ever in the history of Earth. Something is happening, that blooming, that opening to reveal the majesty of this planet that we are on, this goddess that we're being birthed from, is being revealed. But in that, it feels also very much like our original man and woman that's inside of each and every single one of us is coming together.
Yes.
Internally and externally, to then procreate the new Earth from consciousness. How do you feel about that, Nina?
Absolutely. I've been experiencing an inner merging and a union, a reunion. I mean, I actually hear them speaking to each other. It's so beautiful, the level of love that this divine masculine and divine feminine have for each other, which for me is very identified.
What do you mean? Just explain that a moment. What do you hear?
Like beautiful romantic words. It's
what, but do you mean like in an energetic sense? You said
no.
Do you mean like?
I mean, I literally hear them communicating within me, like to each other, the different polarities. It is me. It's not separate. It's just as my own inner masculine and feminine have awoken to king, queen, they're now meeting in the middle. And within that, it's like, oh my God, you're so beautiful. I love you so much. I mean, it's just, it's like a huge, I can't believe I just shared that when you're
so cute.
really vulnerable. But I honestly really pray that everyone else gets to have this experience, because it is this rising in love. And to be honest, it's the words that I've always wanted to hear someone say outside of me. And what's been happening now is, because these words are being spoken within me and I'm resonating in that space, I am now attracting outer reflections that are speaking to me that way.
I love that. See, when I talk about self-love, that's what I mean. You know, it is that words of absolute love, the words that we've always wanted to hear, we say to ourselves, or we listen to from within ourselves. It's both. Those sacred conversations that mean everything, and they're trustworthy. They're really,
they are.
Up.
I'm feeling so strongly to say this. I don't know who's listening right now, but I just feel like I'm supposed to say this out loud. If you're in an abusive relationship right now, if you've been through trauma, if you've been through abuse, speak life back into yourself. If they are not saying it to you, or if they're criticizing you, or they're always bringing you down, go into the mirror, look into your own eyes, and tell yourself, I love you so much. You are enough. I will protect you. I love you. You are so beautiful. We have the power to do that. And that breaks spells and it breaks chains. It did for me. I just went through it again.
Which reminds me, all of that is in my book. Exactly that, exactly. And it's to do with how to forgive yourself, how to access these memories and everything that's inside, and clean that container out. And actually, you can go to my website, taraloveperry.com, and you can get this whole book right now for free, by the way. Not the physical copy, but the digital copy, because it's so time. You know, it's like, I don't want there to be any barriers or any walls to this information, so that people know how to come back into divine union with themselves. And I mean, all that we consider earthly and human and less than and lower and whatever, dense and physical and whatever, just the mess and gloop of birth and death and humanity, to truly meet the divine nature in oneself and to merge, because both are needed. The masculine and feminine, the light and the dark, the yin, the yang, it's all needed to come into absolute union with one another. And so that book will take you through the steps, very simple steps, but very deep and profound steps, to have that union within yourself. So please go get it. And then you can have beautiful conversations with yourself like Nina does.
Yes,
Nina
they're quite
as well, I wanted to say. What's quite lovely? What did you say? Sorry, you're into.
Oh, the conversations are quite lovely. Can you hear me?
It's nurturing to the soul, isn't it? It's like the relief medicine.
It is so nurturing, and especially if you've been, used and abused and thrown away often, and you've been in relationships that very much brought you down. When you start to have this remembrance of who you truly are, and everything Gaia and Creator and the frequencies on the planet are supporting that. What I've been really experiencing is, if I start to judge myself, because that still happens sometimes, less and less and less, like extremely less and less than ever. But this voice, which is that higher authority, because I've given this voice the higher authority, just comes right in and is like, I just love you so much. It just penetrates right into the darkness, and then you just melt. You are melting your own programs, you're melting your own astral cages, you're melting your own love. It is so powerful.
Love transforms everything, doesn't it? Everything unlike itself, love will bring back into the frequency and the harmony and the bliss of love.
Yes.
And also, because I think a lot of people that might consider themselves abused or have been abused can also be really abusive, and there's a shadow side to that. So whether you're abused or abusive, chances are you're both.
Yeah.
It's really important to see that, so, and come into union with all of that and that absolute love for all of that. But I was also thinking about, how in the beginning, there was the birth situation, basically, how we go through this experience of birth, life, death, birth, life, death, and how there's been so much pain and ignorance around birthing and dying and living, to be honest. The whole, so the fall from the Garden of Eden was all like, well, now woman shall be in pain in labor. Death will be painful and dreadful and awful and dark and scary. And you will be alone, and you will be cut off from God, and you will be outcast. You will be outcast from the Garden of Eden. You will have to go and figure it out by yourself. And so then we experience all this pain. And, when we are born of pain, we tend to live pain. And then, of course, if we've lived pain and birthed pain, then we're likely to die painfully, because that's the foundation that we came in on. That's kind of what we know. Even if we know something more, that there is love, that there is harmony, that there is another way, and we know that in our higher self all the time, it's actually what we end up living is the stronger pattern, the habit, the subconscious memories of what it is to be born in a painful way, to die in a painful way. And we all know there's so many stories in history when there's painful deaths and murders and all kinds of horrible things, right? And women died in childbirth, and the people were ripped from their mother's womb. And so there can be a huge pain around the mother, coming from the mother and going back. It's been like a painful journey. It's like, so we both love it and hate it at the same time. And it's been this horrible struggle of a journey. And so what I'm experiencing now is like, it's like we've been through, even whilst we've been alive, we're birthing, rebirthing, dying, birthing, dying, rebirthing, dying, while staying in a body, not leaving the body to have a death experience. And if for those of you that have done ayahuasca, you completely understand what I'm talking about. You get an ego death, you get a sense of, I am actually going to die. Or if you've had an actual near-death experience, or whatever, you've had your life threatened in some way, it's like, what am I trying to say? I lost my track there. What I'm trying to say is just about coming to terms with that death in reality, and we can embody this, we can heal the birth traumas, we can heal that painful relationship that's been set up with our mother, and heal the memories of dying or the fear of dying because of the unknown, heal the split of the separation from the mother, or the split of the womb as we were yanked out, or whatever it was. We can heal that, and that's what's been healing for a very long time. And now what I'm really experiencing is that feeling of death and birth is coming full cycle as well. So it's like I get a sense of a new life emerging, which has no death and birth.
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about, Nina?
I do. I've been feeling it as there is no death, there is no birth. It's all just rebirth. It's a constant cycle. It's a never-ending cycle. And it's just transformation after transformation after transformation. It's such a freeing reality when you live in that reality, because the more that we become attached and we don't want to let go, it becomes like a hell. And when we live in that space of unattachment, of allowing the cycles of transformation to occur, however they show up, as another initiation, we're really honoring.
It is to transcend the death, birth, rebirth cycle. It's like all there is absolute now. And not just as a concept, as a spiritual concept, because a lot of us understand the spiritual concept, all there is now. Yeah, right. So be in the now, be in the moment. But it's an actual embodiment of that. It's coming from the yoni. It's coming from the womb. It's coming from within. The awareness is emerging. I literally feel like I was talking the other day. I was on my paddle board out on the ocean, talking to the ocean. I'm just blissing out. And I literally felt like the top of my head was going to open and light would start beaming out. And I felt like if I opened my legs, there would just be like light. I would just like, and then my body would just break off, and I would just, all this light would come out. And I literally, you know, it sounds so funny to say it out loud, but I literally feel like that, like this absolute isness of now, that heaven that is, was, and always will be, that's always been there, is now, it's embodied, and it's becoming the reality. It's becoming my actual real life standard day-to-day reality.
Yeah.
Not just a spiritual concept, or, you know, it's physically, tangibly happening inside my body, inside my body. Yeah. Do you feel that? It's like heaven on earth is establishing through each and every single one of us as we transcend our, what we think is mortality, which is just a cloak to give us a sense of separation so that we could have this human experiment or human experience. And then we return to the Garden of Eden, that we return to that realization in full knowledge, in full empowered choice, knowledge that we chose it, in full consciousness of who we truly are. And I literally feel like that heaven on earth is here. I can feel that in the air. I can feel it in Gaia. That's her frequency, heaven on earth. And so to resist heaven on earth energy anywhere on this planet is going to be really hard. You know, it's going to manifest itself everywhere. Heaven on earth is manifesting in every single one of us. Boom.
It is. Yeah. I think that if you're resisting heaven on earth at this point, it's going to result in the body being in disease. So I know for me, going through this initiation kind of like 2 years ago, that was what started to happen. It was my body started breaking down because I couldn't actually hold anymore the vibration of that which was actually trying to say, this is not where you are, but you have to let go. So that's a kind of, it will be interesting to see how people are going through this time and this process of transformation. And we always have a choice. We can let go at any moment. And whatever it is that you're facing, that you're dealing with, know that it's come up for your ultimate sovereignty and your freedom. We're really just being shown, where are you not sovereign? Where in your life right now are you holding on? Have you given your power outside of yourself to something else? Because it seems that everything we've given our power to outside of ourselves right now is just very quickly being taken away, like for our sovereignty and our freedom.
Absolutely. We got to own our power, own who we are, self-realize and self-body.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I know that there's more even layers to this, but I feel like it's time to let you go on with the rest of your day, Nina. I know you've got things to do.
I do. I have a client. I get to have a client next. So.
But how beautiful. And yeah, I really feel that I'm seeing it. I know it, that we are coming into a different kind of union with our other. That is absolute heart. It's full heart. And that is scary, but it's also incredible. You just keep walking into love every day. You just walk into love.
Is it not the greatest love story ever? Because this is the eternal love story that will never abandon you, never leave you, is never gonna tell you you're not enough of this or not enough of that. Yes, it's so precious.
Better than Disney. Do you know what? I've been so involved in listening to you, because I couldn't listen to you and share on this level with you while still looking at any comments. So I just want to thank all of you who have been commenting and watching. Ouroboros, that's the thank you, Cesis. Ouroboros, the snake. That's the snake eating its tail. So and also, so drinking lots of water, everybody. I know a lot of people are just getting the urge to just have a water cleanse.
And with lemon too, so alkalized.
Yeah, except you got to watch your teeth, because I'm drinking so much water and lemon right now, but lemon's really acidic for the teeth, so you have to rinse afterwards. I've noticed that. But so many people are just feeling the call to go vegetarian or go vegan. It's like they don't want to eat animals anymore, doesn't taste right, doesn't feel right, or they're having water fasts just spontaneously, just need to just drink water for like a week or 10 days. So your body is telling you what to do. It's your inner wisdom coming out, so completely trust it. Let's walk in love together. It's the best time ever to be alive. It's like, wow, so exciting.
Yes.
I love you so much, Nina. I'm so glad you're in my life. I can't wait to see you in real life when I
I love you so much too. This has just been such a blessing to share this space with you. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. I'm sure we'll do it again. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And yeah, please do continue to comment below and go and check Nina's website out. Nina has incredible music. Nina, will you put the link or tell everybody the website where they can go?
I will. It's a free album and it's on SoundCloud right now because I made it 10 years ago and the files were deleted and blah, blah, blah. So basically you can download it off of SoundCloud and I'll put the links. Yes.
Okay, so if you go to SoundCloud and look for Nina Starsong, they will find you.
Yes, they will. Yes.
Wonderful. And Nina has this amazing kind of angelic, etheric music. It's unbelievable. It's amazing.
I sing in light language, but this album specifically is more like a pop dance album, and it's all coded with diamond codes and DNA activation, theta healing, different gem rays. I tried to make starseed music for this time 10 years ago, but I didn't know what I was creating. And I made most of it on the island of Kauai, so it really has the Kauai aloha vibes too.
Thank you. I love that. All right, beautiful. I'm going to let you go. I love you so much, and I will see you
soon.
Thank you, everybody.